Most people who buy the Rodecaster Pro use it for actual podcasts. Meanwhile, I'm about to tell you how I've been using it as an audio recorder for my YouTube videos.
Freaking YouTubers these days.
Now, I know that sounds like an awful waste of an extremely capable podcast mixer, but for what it's worth, it actually fits in perfectly as the centerpiece to my audio solution that's serving my entire studio. I needed a recorder that lives here in the studio, so portability was not really a concern. That's why I went with this instead of something smaller like a Zoom H6. This has a huge interface and large touchscreen, which does make operation a whole lot more pleasant. It's also much easier to navigate through the settings and menus compared to a small field recorder. And especially for these talking heads that I record right here in the studio, I love how easy it is to monitor the status of your recording. There's a big time display on the screen, your levels are clearly visible, and the massive record button lights red when it is recording. It might just seem like a user interface thing, but I think it does actually make a difference when it comes to minimizing accidents like not rolling audio. This does record onto micro SD cards, which I thought was a bit of an interesting decision since a device this size should be able to accommodate full-size SD cards no problem. But that aside, I do like the way the record button is color-coded. Without a card in, it's blue, and when there's a card in and it's ready to record, it pulses green, and when it's recording, it's bright red. You can literally find out if you're ready to record or are recording simply by glancing at the record button. But how do the recordings sound? The quality of a recorder's preamps is always a key concern. On this one, it seems that Rode is quite happy with what they've done with the preamps because they've printed quite visibly Class A servo-biased preamps right on the face of the Rodecaster Pro. And to their credit, these are actually quite impressive. This here is the Rode Pod Mic. It's a dynamic microphone, so you do need to add quite a bit of gain on this thing to get a decent signal. I'm currently on gain level 35. This maxes out at 55, so we're really pushing it quite a bit here. And the Rodecaster Pro is handling this high gain really quite well. Nowhere near as noisy as I thought it would be, considering I'm plugging a dynamic mic straight into a preamp. But for a hotter mic like the NTG3 that I typically use, absolutely no sweat for the RCP. My gain's only at 18 for this one, but you'll definitely see many users get the pod mic to go with the Rodecaster Pro just because it's such a great mic for its low price. There's 4 XLR mic inputs, so 4 preamps, meaning if I need to record multiple guests up here and want to give each of them their own mic, I can have up to 4 simultaneously. And by default, the Rodecaster Pro will record all your inputs as a stereo mixdown, which is why I make sure to enable multi-track for micro SD recording. It then records your audio as a slightly insane 14-track WAV file, so your file sizes are going to go up, way up in fact, but the amount of control you get is incredible. See, this way, it will of course separate each input into its own track, but you actually still get to keep your live stereo mix. Those live on tracks 1 and 2, followed by all your raw inputs. You do have to make sure, however, that your post-fader setting is off under the multi-track settings, meaning aside from tracks 1 and 2, everything else is pre-fader, meaning even if I had a fader all the way down, but if there was sound going into the input, that still gets recorded. This also brings me to one of my favorite parts about recording with the Rodecaster Pro. It has really impressive Aphex audio processing built in, alongside some more common processors like compression, noise gate, and a de-esser. I can record with those enabled, so I don't have to worry about needing to do too much to my audio in post, but just in case I messed up any settings while recording, or if I don't like the way the audio processing sounds, as long as I was recording in multi-track and have bypass audio processing set to on, I can always access the original unprocessed inputs from the recording and tweak it from scratch. And just to clarify, even though bypass audio processing is set to on, your processing still gets applied, albeit only to the stereo mix portion of your multi-track on tracks 1 and 2. So if all goes well, my stereo track is already processed and ready to go the moment I end my recording. The 2 Aphex processors you get are called Big Bottom and Aural Exciter. Now I know Big Bottom sounds a little funny, but it gives your voice a more boomy quality to it. So right now Big Bottom is on, so let me just toggle it between on and off. Big Bottom is now on. This is Big Bottom off, and here it is on again. The Aural Exciter, on the other hand, works to enhance the higher frequencies. So here's Aural Exciter on, Aural Exciter off, and here it is back on again. You'll also notice that I have the Rodecaster Pro up here on a cart. So if I ever record in a different spot in the studio, I can just wheel it over, or if say I need to record a voiceover, I can do it straight from this cart. Plus I keep all my mics right under it. It does need to run off wall power, but it's actually possible to run the Rodecaster Pro off a USB power bank if you get the Rode DC USB 1 adapter, which I probably will soon. It's also nice to have it on wheels as sort of an audio station because you can also connect it via USB to a computer and use it as a really powerful audio interface. I do occasionally teach online classes, so the Rodecaster Pro has been very useful for running live audio for video conferencing. This has also got 2 1/4-inch ports that are the master left and right output, so you could run a pair of studio monitors off of this. That gets its own volume control. There's a ton of headphone outs, each with their individual volume controls as well, since this was designed for podcasts. This little 3.5mm headphone jack at the front of the unit mirrors the signal from headphone out 1. It's also super neat that it's got both a wired and wireless option for recording audio from mobile devices. There's a 3.5mm TRRS input. On a separate channel, there is Bluetooth, so you connect your phone to the Rodecaster Pro like it's a Bluetooth speaker, and the Rodecaster would be able to receive and record that signal. It can also send a mix minus signal back to the phone, so you can answer a call with audio from the Rodecaster Pro. So it really is a lovely device with so much functionality. The audio for every single video I've made this year was actually recorded with this machine, but if Rode ever makes an updated version of this, however, I can think of a few improvements that would make this an even better product. For example, it would be great if the XLR inputs were XLR combo inputs instead, because at the moment there is no direct way to input a signal over 1/4-inch into this. And while there are many great audio processing options built in, an equalizer is not one of them. I just thought it would be really neat if there was something like a per input parametric equalizer. But that's about it on the Rodecaster Pro. If you'd like to watch more of my reviews, maybe give these ones a try.